right about now. Welcome. And it's been a while, but it's because of so many things that are happening in this life. We all have something that we're chasing, and it doesn't mean that we cannot be part of what is happening. Thank you so much for joining. And I just want to talk about something that we all know, something that we all go through at some point in life, and that is in the area of marriage, because there's so much that is happening. And if you get to figure out, many people are divorcing, and many people, don't worry about that, that is my baby girl. So many people are going through so much that most of these guys, they don't know what to do, and they don't know who to turn to, because they tend to think that in that place of brokenness, heartbreaks, and all those things, they have no one to talk to. And this is something that is happening to both the females and the males. And the question is, what can we all do so that we can have relationships that are long lasting? Because nowadays marriages are so breaking up, and people don't want to be part of marriage. And the other day I was talking to a friend, and he was telling me, you know what, I just want a woman whom I can sign a contract with, have children with, and then at the end of the day, she can do whatever she wants in this life. The question again is this: is that the will of God concerning marriage? Is that what God desires that we all experience in marriage? I don't think so. Because God's plan for marriage is that humanity can experience the beauty, the graciousness of God. People can be able to see the revelation of His greatness through marriage, because marriage was God's initiation. And God desired that humanity can see the potentials and the beauty of what God had intended for marriage to be. And in the book of Ephesians chapter 5 verse 22, that verse that we all know, wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. This verse has a misconception, and people keep on pushing this verse, especially men. They push this verse to women, trying to make women feel like they're supposed to be slaves. They're supposed to, be there at home and do what is supposed to be done. They are not supposed to chase their dreams. They are not supposed to go out in the world and come up with something. And when I look at this verse, one of the things that many people are trying to do, especially in the religious setups, people are trying to drive that idea of women can just do what they can do when they submit to their wives. But I want to break that idea, that narrative. I want to change it, and I want to let us know that that very verse does not mean that we should enslave our women. It does not mean that our women should just remain in the kitchen and do what they have to do, that they should wash the utensils and all those things that are at home. But one of the things that people don't know, when we also empower our wives, when we are able to do what a real man should do, that woman will be able now to have that peace of mind, and also to be part of your journey as a man. Because when it says, wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, one of the verses that many men don't read, below there it says, and husbands also, you should love your wives. You should be there to be part of their journey. Walk with your wives. Allow your wives to also have an opinion to the building of that relationship, to the construction or structuring of that relationship, because it takes the two of you to make it work. I believe when a woman is loved right, treated right, and also there's a misconception about loving a woman right. People tend to think loving a woman right, it's all about having good sex with her. It's not about that. You can have good sex with anyone, but when it comes to your wife, it's a matter of just doing the right thing by her side. And what are those right things? By what was put together and knitted together by God, you are able now to express those beautiful ideas about life, about marriage, to your partner, to your spouse. So, wives, submitting to your to their husbands, it's not a matter of them being enslaved. It's not a matter of them living a lifestyle that they cannot be able to express the potentials they have, the abilities they have, the ideas they have about life. It takes a man who is a visionary to see the abilities that the woman has. And it's very, very concrete for a man that has wisdom to analyze every situation and work in that idea of, I have to ensure that my wife becomes something that is of worth. And that is why I'm talking today and letting us know submitting for a woman is not a matter of enslaving her and pushing her on the ground or choking her and letting her know, you know what, you have to do this, you have to keep on doing this and that. No. But it's a matter of letting your woman know, as much as you're here and I'm above you, it doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion. It doesn't mean that you cannot be part of the solution in this marriage. You're here. And me being that person or that man that God has ordained to be the leader of the family, it is not all by so much wisdom that I have as a man. It's all about the protocols and the leadership that God desired that man should have. And I want to go to the next verse, the same chapter, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Look at that verse, very beautifully said. It is important for a man to understand that when it comes to loving your wife, there are things you will have to sacrifice. Many men right now in this generation, they are desiring to have many women. The question is your woman subscribing or your wife subscribing to that idea? If it is not so, why are you intending to be part of a journey that does not bring something that is of value on the table between you and your wife? Because love is not a matter of just words. Love is an action. It is something that you do. It is what you do. And it is a decision that you make, that you're going to love your wife no matter what. You're going to do what you have to do to ensure that the growth of that marriage is dependent on how the both of you have made a decision to grow it, to build it, to nurture it, to become something. Because it takes two to tangle and two to fumble. And before you get into that great place, you just have to understand that marriage is built on one thing, and that is the place of knowing and understanding that it does not take the both of you to lose the position that God ordained. So loving your wife as a husband, loving your wife as Christ loved the church, you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to do so much. You have to push yourself and take responsibility and move past what people think and all that, so that you're able to do what is required. Don't mind the baby. The baby is okay. Yeah, she's just playing and all that. Don't mind the baby. And one thing as a man you have to know, loving your wife takes a man that is strong, a man that is willing to also nurture that woman, to grow that woman, even when it comes to so many things, because there are challenges in relationships. People are facing so much in relationships. You find that when there's no money, the love that you both share cannot be intentional, because there are things that are missing, and people tend to think that the love that is in marriages or in relationships is based on what people have. But it's not about that. It's about two people coming together and thinking beyond where they are and trying to put the best foot forward, so that they're able to come with a solution to solve the problems in the relationship. And as a man in that relationship, you just don't have to speak aimlessly. You have to think through so many things, so that when you come to even discuss with your partner, with your wife, you have to be able to do what is required. Because at the end of the day, it takes you as a leader to just give a direction that is so intentional to build that relationship. I want to conclude by Ephesians, the same chapter, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 28 to 29. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. Look at that verse. Very profound. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. Look at what is happening in our generation. Many men don't love their bodies. They're going to sleep with whoever they think they're sleepable with. If there's an English like that, they feel like I can sleep with whoever I want to sleep with. But the intention of building a relationship that is long lasting, it's all about knowing and understanding that I can be able and be positive to do it right, not based on my own understanding, but based on the decisions that I've made, so that I can move forward and by what God has ordained for marriages to be. So as a husband, you ought to love your wife as your own body. He who loves his wife loves himself. If you love your wife, you love yourself. But the decision you made to take care of that person. So you love yourself very much if that example is based on also loving your wife in the right way. For no one ever hated his own flesh. How do you hate your own body? You can never hate your own body. You just have to know that loving your wife, it's not about doing what is not right by her side. You have to take responsibility. I want to conclude by saying this. God has enabled humanity to experience his beauty in marriage. And marriage cannot be if we are not willing to take the initiative to work through based on what God ordained. The disciples came to Jesus sometime in one of the chapters and they asked Jesus a question. According to the law of Moses, it was required that we give a certificate of divorce. But now, these guys ask Jesus, what do you say about this? Jesus answers them and tells them, you know, Moses gave that idea to you guys. I'm paraphrasing. He gave that idea to you guys because you are hardened of hearts. Your hearts are so hard. Your minds were so hardened that you could not think beyond what you thought. And you wanted so much for yourselves as man selfishly. I'm paraphrasing. And Moses gave that law because of that. And Jesus answered them by concluding that from the beginning it was not like so. So the intentions of God from the beginning, it was not for man to marry as many wives as he could think. But the idea of man is that because he wants to satisfy his own desires, satisfy his own pleasures and all that, he wants to marry many wives, many women. And that is why, based on traditions, cultures, and all that, people want to marry as many wives as they can. But the intention of God is that mankind can be able to experience God's glorious touch based on what he had ordained here on earth. So let us take responsibility as men. Let us take responsibility. And that is why Matthew chapter 9 verse 6 says, so then they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. Take responsibility and do what is required.